It's Emily, welcome back to my channel, and it's that time of month again to film my monthly reading wrap up. Now, the month of April finally picked up and I got out of my reading slump and tackled 34 books. So I'm going to try to be as brief as possible so we're not here all day filming. But let's hop right on in and I'll share my brief thoughts on all the books I read this past month. I kicked off April with a chunker with the fourth book in the Wheel of Time series, The Shadow Rising. This one had a lot going on and the characters were kind of splitting up and going different ways. At times I did have a hard time tracking what was going on with all the characters and stuff, but still it was a good read and I do plan on continuing on with this series, especially because it's been taking me a while to get through all these books. So hopefully I will find the motivation to pick up the fifth book soon. The next book I tackled in the month of April was The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. Originally I started reading this this past summer, but then put it down and never got around to it. So I started it over from the beginning. And we follow Esther, and this book is set in the 1950s, and she's trying to follow societal norms and then ends up getting depressed and put in an asylum. And this book really does make you think and hits home on a lot of points. And therefore I did find it pretty relatable, even though it is dated, but with the relatability of pressure on women in society. I took a break from reading some clunkers and thinkers and read Horimiya Volume 6, great continuation on with the series and highly recommend the series. I tackled the 14th volume of Hunter x Hunter and another great continuation and really am enjoying this new arc. I ended up reading the first 3 volumes in Noragami Stray God. I watched this anime several years ago and now they're finally releasing the omnibus bind-ups of the manga, so I've been buying them and love the manga just as much as I love the anime and can't wait to see what happens next. After taking a brief break with mangas, I went back and read Arcanum Unbounded by Brandon Sanderson, which is a collection of short stories and novellas set within his Cosmere universe. Really great overall, addition to some different worlds, as well as introducing some new worlds I haven't gotten to yet in his novels, but still greatly enjoyed it. I decided to tackle a classic with The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells. This one, it was an okay read. Some parts were interesting, some parts were a little dated, but still overall was a good read. And I did listen to the audiobook version of this, which is probably the only way I got through it. I went on a bit of a manga spree with Haikyuu this month and read volumes 15 through 21 because I really wanted to finish this current arc and see if they were going to go to nationals or not. Great continuation on with the series and really did enjoy this, and maybe next month I can actually complete the whole series since I will be prioritizing my unread mangas. Another book I tackled was Trust of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson. This was one of my highly anticipated books and I was so glad it finally arrived on April 1st. And this book, I really did enjoy the story of Tress and how she set out on a mission to rescue Charlie and ended up making new friends along the way and discovering more about herself. And also, this book did have some very good quotes, and I think one of the quotes I do want to bring to light because it did really hit home for me, because as I was reading, there was a tragedy in Nashville, which is about 45 minutes down the road from where I live. And the quote is, "Yes, while most terrible mass murderers like Crow do tend to be well acquainted with tragedy, it makes you wonder who the true monster is, the killer or the society that created them." And I think this one just hit home when I was reading it, because it really made me think, like, yes, what really is creating this issue? But I guess let's get off that spree and move on to the next book. I completed The Hollow Boy, which is the 3rd book in the Lockwood & Co. series by Jonathan Stroud. I really did enjoy this book. And here we see that Lucy's gift is growing. We have a new teammate joining their team named Holly, and there was a ghost cluster that was terrorizing London that caused all the agencies to have to team up to try to figure out how to stop it. So really great and enjoyable read, and can't wait to see what happens next after the cliffhanger. I finally got the Assassin's Blade completed, which are the Throne of Glass novellas that are kind of serving as prequels to the series. This was a meh read for me. I mean, most of the stuff was touched on in the series, so this was just kind of elaborating what actually happened, so I did grow kind of bored at times. And of course, very YA writing, so I was cringing throughout. Another book I completed this month was Guild by Raven Kennedy, which I finally had my Fairy Loot editions come in. This one, it was very, very tropey and very juvenile writing. So I was rolling my eyes a lot throughout, but I did still enjoy the read, I think, because it was just quick and easy to breeze through. And I will probably continue on with the series because it is an easy read, though there are a lot of issues with the way women are represented in this series and the way that men treat their women, which did kind of have me cringing a bit. Panic, but I read The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams. This was a really fun and engaging read, and I would definitely recommend listening to the audiobook on this because the narrator really makes the story come to life as we follow Arthur, whose whole world gets upended when he discovers his home is about to get demolished, the earth gets demolished, and his best friend turned out to be an alien, and they end up hitchhiking across the galaxy. So great, enjoyable read, and I would recommend purchasing this edition because the illustrations in this are really stellar. I tackled some more manga this month with volumes 27 through 29 of My Hero Academia. Now this part of the series is starting to take a darker turn as the heroes pose an attack against the villains. And there's really a lot of chaos, death, and destruction going on here, but really love where the story is picking up, and I feel like we are soon going to be nearing the end of this manga because stuff's starting to really go down. I read the second volume of Buffy the Vampire Slayer called Once Bitten, where we leave off with the first volume of Xander becoming a vampire and Buffy and Willow having to figure out how to save them. And then all of a sudden the Hellmouth opens at the end, so leaves you quite on a cliffhanger. The pace in this one was a little off at times, and I don't think the art in this one was as good as the first volume was. But, I mean, it's still a great nostalgic read, considering Buffy was one of my favorite shows I watched growing up as a young kid. I read volumes 4 through 6 of Black Clover. Great continuations on with the series, and can't wait to keep reading to see what happens next, even though technically I do know what happens next. I watched the anime first, but you know, it's great reading it all over again from the beginning. Another book I tackled this month was The School for Whatnots by Margaret Peterson Haddix. This was one of my favorite authors when I was younger, so I wanted to check out this book when I saw it next to nothing on Book Outlet. And here we are following Max, who is about to begin middle grade. He's super rich, and after the end of year party hosted at his house, his best friend leaves him a mysterious message stating that she is real no matter what they tell him, which leads to Max's whole world kind of being turned upside down as he hunts down his best friend. And I think this was a really cute story of friendship, and definitely would recommend for a middle grade reader. I don't tend to read a lot of nonfiction because it does sometimes bore me. However, I did pick up a really engaging one this month called Stiff, The Curious Lives of Human Cadavers by Mary Roach. Now, I will give a disclaimer: if you are easily offended or squeamish, don't read this book because it's literally talking about how bodies that are donated to science are used. So if that offends you, then don't read, because obviously you're not going to like it. But I did really think this was very entertaining because I learned so much about it and the process of bodies being donated to science, as well as the many different uses that cadavers have and the way we use things now in society. I mean, it goes beyond just organ donations. I mean, they are even used as dummies to test car safety features. And I would recommend listening to this on audiobook because the narrator does do a very good job with bringing forth the dry humor the author has. And overall, great read, and definitely do recommend. Another big book I tackled this month was The Books of Jacob. And I'm not going to try to pronounce the name because I'm going to butcher it because I am definitely not native in Polish. And this book it did start out very strong, but then kind of became a shorter read because there's so much to it. The plus to this book is I did learn a lot about Jewish culture, especially with their persecution in the 18th century. And this book is based off of a prophet named Jacob during that time frame. And we are seeing this book told from multiple perspectives, following people either who worship the man or loathe them. So we did get to see different viewpoints on this. And also throughout, there's a lot of interesting images and texts incorporated in here. So if you do like a good historical read, I would definitely recommend this. However, it is a commitment because it is huge and the print is small. Fire is a graphic novel I tackled this month, and I thought it was a really entertaining read. We are following Isa, who is a second-class citizen who dreams of becoming a knight, though she's an Ornu, which are a culture that is frowned upon where she is and among the knights. So she kind of hides her identity and ends up joining them to end up becoming a squire. And through this, she makes friends, her secret gets revealed, and she also learns the truth behind the war. So really interesting read, and definitely did enjoy this. Another book I tackled this month was Race to the Frozen North, the Matthew Henson story by Katherine Johnson. Now this is a children's nonfiction, though I was interested in picking it up because I heard that the writing was dyslexic accessible, so I was kind of interested to see a book formatted that way. Even though I'm not dyslexic, I'm just kind of curious, but I can see how, it might help because the pages are yellow and the way the print is made did make it really easy and a breeze to read through. And this story tells the story of Matthew Henson, the first African American to reach the North Pole. And his story was kind of brushed aside in history, so it was kind of interesting to see this, though I think I probably would have enjoyed it more from an adult perspective because this does really kind of breeze through and break down a lot of the points and issues. But I might see if I can find some more books on the topic in the future. Another book I tackled this month was Cloud Cuckoo Land by Anthony Doerr. This one, we are following 4 different timelines and multiple viewpoints. And it is a very intriguing read with how these timelines and viewpoints are interwoven together. However, sometimes the plot was kind of dropped because it feels like it was 4 stories instead of 1. But kind of seeing how these stories came together at the end was interesting. So I did enjoy the read, though it was a bit lengthy at times. Another chunker I tackled this month was The Sword of Kaigen by M.L. Wang. Now this one had a slow start and I almost put it down, but then stuff started picking up. It did have one of my biggest pet peeves there. I don't want to spoil it, but I guess what happened was necessary to the other characters' development. But overall, it was a really good story, and if you can get past the first third of the book, things are really going to pick up and you're going to want to know what's happening next. So I would definitely recommend this one, though just keep in mind it does have a slow start. The final book I read this month was 16 Souls by Rosie Talbot. This is a YA paranormal where we are following Charlie, who can see ghosts after he almost died and lost his legs to meningitis and came back to life. And he ends up meeting a fellow seer named Sam, who has realized ghosts in the city are going missing. So him and Charlie decide to team up and figure out who is taking the ghost. So really cute, enjoyable read, and I would definitely recommend this one. I guess that's it for the books I read in the month of April. I would attempt to hold them all up, but I might break something in the process, so we're just gonna pretend I'm holding them. I think April was a great reading month for me because I was finally able to kind of get out of that reading slump I've been in and also get a lot of big books off of my TBR that have been sitting on there for a bit. Hopefully May brings more success. I know in the month of May, I'm going to venture away from reading actual novels and focus more on manga, since it will be my second year doing Manga May, which is basically me focusing on getting my unread mangas down on my TBR, which I have about 3 shelves full of manga I haven't read yet. So hopefully I can get it down to maybe 1 or 2 shelves left unread. But I guess that's it for today's video. If you enjoyed, feel free to click the like and subscribe button down below. Also, feel free to share some of your fave reads this month, or if you saw any books on my list that you've read and enjoyed too. I'm always interested to hear you guys' opinions. But thanks and have a great day, and I look forward to seeing you guys in my next video.